Welcome to the HMO Property Show, by investors for investors. Brought to you by the HMO Property Co, Australia's leaders in impact investing. Investments made with the intention to generate a measurable, beneficial social or environmental impact alongside a positive financial return. Catch us weekly as we discuss all things cash flow positive property investing.
Welcome back to the HMO Property Show. Today we've got our Suburb Spotlight Area Expert. It's the one and only Mr. Patrick Armour from SLP. Patrick, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks very much, Neil.
Absolute pleasure and
Happy
a privilege.
to be here, mate.
Thanks for coming down. So Patrick, Stirling's your stomping ground. Lived there for 15 years now?
15, 16 years, yep.
Selling properties there for the last 9 or 10?
Yep, 9 years. Yeah. Going on 9 years. What's
happening in Stirling at the minute? Apart from the council is the biggest shire in the Perth metro area, there's actually a suburb called Stirling as well, isn't there?
Absolutely. Yeah. It's really interesting because I didn't realise there are nearly 30 suburbs within the City of Stirling.
That's huge.
You know, and one of them's Stirling.
Which is confusing.
So a huge area. Great area. As I said, we've been there 15, 16 years. We live just behind the Stirling Council there in a little pocket called Civic Gardens. Sunday mornings, walk out to the markets, in the council grounds there. My kids love the sort of subway and the chicken treat, and I think my wife loves the chemist just around the corner. So it's really convenient. And great for the kids, and we're a multi-generational family, so it's great for the in-laws also because we've got the train and the bus stations just 5-minute walk.
Proximity to the CBD?
10 minutes.
Yep.
So it's so good. And
how far from the train station still? And it's only a short walk, isn't it?
Well, from where we are, it's a 5-10 minute walk.
And very close proximity to my wife's favourite shop, which is IKEA.
Oh my God! Yes. Well, yeah.
I can't stand the place. I feel like I'm just cattle going around on the arrows.
It's not that bad because I was in the sort of furniture design game, so having it then it makes it really convenient.
Yeah. Let's dig into how did you get into real estate and end up doing what you're doing now?
Yeah, great question. So my background for the last 40 odd years prior to getting into real estate was in furniture and interior design. So I had a business on the corner of Scarborough Beach Road and Main Street in Mount Hawthorn.
Yep.
So I was in furniture and design, so loved it. Had a lot of fun, travelled, and helped people style homes, design, decorate homes.
Yep.
So I did that for a long time, and then one day somebody I was doing a home for, and I was actually getting the house ready to go to market through a real estate agent, and the real estate agent said to me, they said, have you ever thought of going into the game yourself? And it was interesting because it was always something in the back of your mind, but you sort of don't think, when will the time be right? Well, the time's always right, or it'll never be right. So you just have to jump in.
True. I think they say the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago, and the next best time is today.
Yeah, absolutely. So that was it. So just on 9 years ago, I decided, it's time.
Yeah. Let's
go do this thing. Loved it.
Yeah.
Loved it.
Brilliant, man.
Still loving it.
Talk about the progression as well. Like you've been in and around real estate for so long, helping people improve the livability of that house, but also staging and styling for sale as well.
Exactly, and so it was something that came quite naturally because I was invited into people's homes to help them decorate, colour, and work out how to best use the space. So when it came into real estate, it was the old adage, less is more. Yeah. So you start with an empty room and you ask yourself, what's the bare minimum I need to make this thing happen and look its best. Yeah. So it was a really natural and fun progression and transition for me.
Yeah, and there's a very unique skill set that you bring into that new role as a real estate agent as well, isn't there?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And it's as much I'm working as for sellers, I'm also working with buyers, and if I can make a buyer see the potential of a space. If I can help a buyer see the potential of the home and what they can do with certain rooms by moving things around, by changing a few things here and there. In turn, I'm working for the seller, because at the end of the day, we want that property sold, and we want the buyer to be able to see the best and fullest potential, I guess, of that.
Yeah.
So it's fun because you see the satisfaction. The seller's happy because they're getting the result they want, but the buyer's also in turn really happy. And I've had buyers call me after they've moved into the home, and they said, listen, we really liked your ideas. Can you recommend, what we do at this space? And I've taken time out and I've gone shopping with them to help them furnish their...
What about above and beyond, eh?
Yeah, well, but it's... When you love something, it's not work.
And real estate's about relationships.
Yeah.
It's really not about the house, is it?
Yeah, no.
It's about building relationships with people.
When I was in the furnishing and decorating game, I've had clients with me for 30, 40 years who've just repeat customers. Coming into my 9th year in real estate, I've had clients who I've sold properties to who've then come back and I've sold for again. And I've had clients who I've sold 5, 6, 7 properties for over the last 7, 8 years. So it's great building that relationship.
Yeah. Going back to the styling and staging part of it as well, my wife and I, we bought and sold houses, renovated them. We bought them old, in need of renovation with no furniture in.
Yep.
And then we've sold them with and without staging in as well, to see what, depending on the budget as well. How do you see the difference, and is it worth the investment to actually stage and style a property for sale?
Yeah. Really interesting, especially with my background. The one thing that I found when I had my decorating business, and now also in real estate, is people have a challenge visualizing space. How big is that room? Oh, they've got to measure it out. Will my double bed or will my sofa fit in there? So staging a house, right, just takes that fear. Will it work for me? It just takes it away.
Yeah.
It just takes it. People walk in there. People buy on emotion. People buy on emotion. So when they see furniture in there, it's light, it's bright, it's it just makes things.
And imagine themselves in that space, can't
Yeah. So it just works.
When it's just 4 walls. You walk in and they go, it's quite small, isn't it? You're like, this is like 3.5 by 3.5.
It's really interesting. It's really interesting you say that, because, and then when you put the furnishings in there and you put the painting in there, the rug, the coffee table, the little side lamp, the plant, people go, oh my God, this room is bigger than I actually imagined.
Yeah.
So it's amazing how much bigger a room will seem once you've put the furniture in there.
What sort of investment are we looking at nowadays to stage a property? Let's say a standard 4x2.
4x2, you're looking around that sort of $3,500.
Yep.
When you think about an average 4x2 in Stirling selling for $1 million, right? It's nothing.
Yeah. And when you're talking $1 million as well, that investment of $3,000 to $4,000 can be the difference between $50,000 on a sale price, can't it?
Absolutely. Yeah. And I guess the old rule is if you spend $1, you want to times 10 it in return. So if you're spending that $2,000 or $3,000 in painting or renovating, it is going to come back to you tenfold.
Yeah, absolutely. Painting, carpet, just the basics. You don't really need to put kitchens and bathrooms in.
Yeah.
Fresh lick of paint.
It's amazing what a fresh lick of paint will do.
Yeah. The smell, the feel.
And people sense that. So you can sort of go, and they go, it's something I don't have to do.
Yeah.
Because people are busy. Everyone's busy.
Yep.
So the last thing they want to do is to have to buy into a house, settle, and then go, now we've got to start this process. So the more of that you do in the initial stages, you take away on the flip side.
What's the kind of history behind Stirling? Do you know anything about why it's there, how it became what it's became?
So, look, if you ask people, and because I live there and I'm sort of quite involved with the community through the basketball, etc. But if you ask people, Stirling was known as the market gardens. So it was settled by the Italians, the Macedonians, the Europeans. Yep. Prior to that, even the Chinese sort of coming through in the 20s and 30s. But in the 50s, 60s, Stirling was market gardens, and you'll still see bits of that as you get out to the outskirts, when you get away, from the estates.
Yeah.
So essentially market gardens in the 60s, etc. And then come 1976, it was gazetted and broke away from Osborne Park and became Stirling as a suburb.
Yeah, great. And are we still seeing that heavy sort of Italian, Macedonian demographic there? Or is it
it has changed, but it's changed quite a lot when you look into the estates of what we call Princeton and Rosalie, which border Carrinup Road and Civic Gardens. But when you get into the outskirts, you still got old Italians and Macedonians and Europeans who've lived 30, 40, 50 years. I'm never moving. I'm never selling again. Yeah. My children are going to go hungry for another month.
Are these developable blocks as well?
They're developable. They're developable blocks. Yeah. But those Italian families have got children and grandchildren, and it's fantastic because we're gonna leave it for the sons and the daughters and the grandkids. So you appreciate that, So that's fine. Yeah. But there's still a great percentage of that sort of European, Italian, Macedonian sort of community in the outer skirts of Stirling.
What are we seeing in the way of age demographic as well? Is it gentrifying? Are we getting younger in the suburb? Is it staying the same?
Look, as you get into the outer suburbs, there's still that older community, and then as you come in towards the city of Stirling, and as you come in towards the estates of Princeton and Rosalie, Civic Gardens, you're getting that younger, that 40 to 60 demographic.
Yep.
So it's a nice mix. It's a nice mix. Interestingly, there's still almost 50% ownership in Stirling.
As in
owner occupiers.
Yeah.
So it's still
outright.
Owned outright. Yeah. So it's still a pretty high percentage.
Yep.
So that tells you that people who've lived there, they like living there, they love the centrality of it.
Yep.
Close to everything.
And in the last 9 or 10 years that you've been operating in that space, in that suburb, are you seeing a change in the people that live there and the way that they live?
Look, the last 5 to 7 years, there's been a huge influx of the Asian market, lots of Indians, lots of Chinese, sort of coming into the estates. So there's been a huge influx. It obviously, during that COVID period, it's been affected, but we're starting to slowly see, that return. But the estates, and I again talk about the Princeton, Rosalie, and the Civic Gardens, huge Indian and Chinese market.
Okay. Do you know what's attracting them in there?
Probably my wife and myself. My wife's Chinese and I'm Indian.
Patrick lives there. It must be a good place.
They're in trouble. Look, I think they love the fact that it's so central. It's 10. We in Stirling we talk about we're 10 minutes from everywhere.
It's a great location.
It's a great location. You've got everything there. They just like it.
You're talking about some of the outer suburbs there as well. What are you classing as the outer suburbs of Stirling?
So when I say the outskirts of Stirling, so you've got the parts of Odin Road, you've got those parts of Cedric Street, you've got those parts of Jones Street going off towards Amelia Street. So I call those, they're still classified as Stirling, but they're the sort of outskirts of Stirling, right of Grindleford, where the Rosalie Village Shopping Centre is, you've got, that becomes Balcata. But, you've got the mosaic development happening behind the shops there. So there's a lot happening in Stirling.
Yeah.
There's a lot happening in Stirling, a lot to be excited about.
There's a good little strip that you mentioned just there that you live behind. There's good cafes, bars, restaurant there as well.
Yeah, we've got 3 or 4 restaurants. We've got an Indian restaurant. We've got the chemist. We've got the doctors. It's all there. We've got the IGA further down on Cedric Street with a myriad of shops. Then you've got the Rosalie Village centre that's just opened up its own variety of cafes. Just on Carrinup Road. Yeah. So there are lots of places for people to shop and not have to travel, far
Yep.
to get their stuff.
Yeah, right. And in the way of market movement, the market at the minute feels quite stagnant. Do you feel like
Yeah. I mean, the last couple of years, everyone's had a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And
Low rates.
and then we were reminded by the banks that things have to change, and so we've had 11 slaps in the face, over the last couple of years, and that sort of just hit. It's just sort of reminded people, going, guys, slow down.
Yeah.
I
think that was the intention, wasn't it?
That was the intention, and I was mentioning to you earlier, when we didn't have that rate rise a month or so ago, it started to bring some optimism and hope back into the market. People were starting to smile again and breathe and go, I think we can go forward again. And then a couple of days ago, there was another slap and going, guys, slow down, don't get too excited. So the market sort of moved and it sort of flattened and sort of stagnated. Sterling is still very strong.
Yeah.
It's still a really good market. I'm biased because we've lived there for so long, but it's still a really good market.
Yeah.
People are still wanting this great demand.
Yep. Are we seeing a lot of properties getting bought and sold at the minute, or is it?
There's not a lot of stock.
Yeah,
there's not a lot of stock. So you talk to people, and we're happy to sell, but where are we going to go?
Yeah.
And we'd like to downsize, but again, where are we going to go? Yeah. We can't rent. There's nowhere to rent. So there's this conflict. There's this inner conflict. They want to downsize, and move, but where? So I think that's you talk about the crystal ball. We're all looking for that. Where's that next wave? I think multiple occupancy. I think that's probably going to fix it.
We've got one in Stirling. I don't think it's going to fix it totally, but it's definitely a style of accommodation.
It'll take care of it. Another 6 people.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, could potentially free up 4 or 5 houses if we put them all in a HMO.
Yeah.
So it's interesting what you said there, though. We had all them rate rises, and then the minute we seen a pause with the rates.
Yep.
Did you say you're seeing people come back into the market? And feel
absolutely.
Like there's
yeah. You could see the activity coming back to home opens, the phone calls. Just a sense of relief.
Yeah.
Just a sense of relief, and it was sort of giving us hope.
Yeah. It's probably an indicator, and I've been saying this for probably the last 6 to 9 months now, is people are sitting on the fence because there's uncertainty in the market, and we were talking about this. Nobody buys in a state of confusion.
Yeah.
And when they're uncertain, they're confused because they don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Now,
I always say, if you're going to stand. If you're going to sit, but don't wobble. Right now, everyone's wobbling.
Wobbling, big time.
Everyone's wobbling.
And because of that, no one is doing anything. But it's interesting that you said as soon as we seen that sort of pause in the race, the phone started ringing, people started moving.
Yep.
Is this an indication of what's going to happen when
absolutely.
we do get confidence back in the market?
Absolutely. And interestingly, I was asking my wife, who's a broker, and she, where do you see this going into 2024? And she was saying, well, it can't continue like this because it'll just strangle everyone. So there has to be some relief, and so when that does happen, you're going to see this, upward thrust again.
I mean, in Western Australia, we are a lot more fortunate than the rest of the country because we've still got the lowest house prices in the country, apart from Northern Territory.
Yeah.
We've got the highest wages in the country.
Yeah.
We've got the lowest unemployment in the country.
Yeah.
So at the minute, we're not being hurt. Oh, look, people are hurt, and don't get me wrong, but not as much as people in Sydney that have got $1 million mortgages and had their rate rises.
And interestingly, I'm getting inquiries now from buyers agents, out of Sydney.
Yeah.
And I'm sort of thinking, has someone opened a door? Well, it's been happening for a while, but it started happening to me just in the last week or two.
Right.
And I've had three buyers agents call me about a particular property, and I'm sort of thinking, but as buyers agents have to do their job for their buyer and their investor, they're always going to come in and want that best price.
Oh, absolutely. I think the spotlight's well and truly back on Perth at the minute, isn't it? It's in the media that we're the boom place to be, or the place to be for property investment right now. We work with a lot of investors from over east. You're seeing your phone ring with buyers agents now as well. What are the buyers agents looking for in a suburb like Stirling?
Look, there's not been so much buyers agent activity in Stirling, but buyers agents in general, they're obviously looking for a yield of 5.5%, 6%. Again, talking to people, if they could a few years ago, if they could have a yield of 3.5%, 4%, they were okay.
Yeah.
But now they realise that the Perth market, especially with the rental market, they can be looking at yields of 6-7%. So it's an exciting time for that eastern states market.
What about price points? I mean, Stirling is quite an expensive suburb. It's higher than the median.
Yep.
So the median in Perth, from what I remember, and I haven't checked this for a couple of weeks, but I think house median is 620.
Yeah. So the median in Stirling for a 4x2 is just sitting around that 950, just under a mil.
So it's up there.
Yeah, it's up there.
Yeah,
if you go back 5 years ago, that same 4x2 you were buying for about 750. If you go back another 5 years prior to that, 10 years ago, you were sitting around that sort of 650 mark. So it was still above the Perth median, which was in the sort of low to mid fives.
Yeah.
So Stirling over the last 10 years is still performed really well.
Yeah. Solid suburb.
Yeah,
that's
solid suburb.
Its proximity, its
yeah.
amenity.
Yeah, exactly.
What we're seeing with buyers agents is, and just as you're saying there, that the median in Stirling's around the 950, just under a mil.
Yeah,
that's potentially out of price point for a lot of investors because they like to be in that kind of 400 to 500. That's what we're seeing. Yeah. And they're the suburbs at the minute that are getting that yield as well, because once you start getting up to $1 million, you're going to have to be renting your house out for a good weekly amount to get a 5 to 6% yield, unless it's obviously a HMO like we do.
Yeah.
But the buyers agents as well. What we're seeing, again, they're looking down in the Manduras and the Rockinghams and stuff like that. And now, historically, when markets have changed, it's the bottom end of the market which kind of feels it the most, isn't it?
Yeah,
and that's
absolutely.
because there's more investors in their markets. Exactly. Because the buyers agents come over and flood it.
Exactly. Yeah. And interesting, you talk about, the lower end of the market feels the most. In Stirling, if you're sitting on $1 million property, it's probably not your first home that you've bought. It's probably your second or third home you've bought. A lot of people there are fairly strong, white-collar sort of workers. So in that sense, if they're affected because of interest rate rises, a seller will turn around and say, well, I don't have to sell right now. I'm not being squeezed like in that bottom end. So I'm just going to sit, and also I don't have anywhere to go. So they're okay to sit. So that's not good for us as agents because, we want to sell. Yeah. But you hear the buyer who was, say, 12 months ago going, I'll put in an offer. They're now turning around and say, well, with those rate increases, I don't have that 800,000 or 900,000 borrowing capacity. I can only borrow up to 650, 700. So the sellers are still wanting the $1 million, but the buyers can only afford maybe 850 now. So therein lies that gap, and you're hoping there's a deal somewhere in there, but that's where things are sitting. Now, in the lower end of the market, where sellers are affected, buyers are affected too, but sellers in that lower end are sort of going, well, okay, if I can't get that 500, maybe I will come back to that sort of 470, 480. Yeah. They don't want to, but they're in a different financial situation.
Yeah. What are the sellers' expectations at the minute? Would you say we're in a buyer's market or a seller's market? Because there's a little bit of...
We're in a seller's market.
Yep.
We're in a seller's market because there's no stock.
Yep. But then no one wants to sell at the same time, do they? What's the seller's expectations?
So the seller's expectations is they're still holding on in Stirling and many other areas. They're still holding on to a slightly higher than normal, higher than market expectation, and that is because. Again in Stirling, then as much as buyers are affected by rate increases, okay, a lot of the Stirling ownership have been there for 10, 15 years.
Debt-free.
So a lot of them are debt free. Yeah. So they'll turn around and say, well, listen, my property's worth $1 million, and it is. They're beautiful homes. They're worth $1 million, and I'm sorry that this guy can't afford, the 800,000 or 900,000 or the $1 million. But that's not my problem. you know. So there's this sort of conflict that goes on. So there has to be some rebalancing.
It's kind of like a Mexican standoff, isn't it? Like they want to sell, they want to buy.
Yeah.
Who's going to make the first move?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So and that's exactly where we're sitting and lying at the moment.
What I know you said the median there is $1 million. What's the kind of cheapest property we could buy in Stirling at the minute?
The cheapest property? Good question. Because I tend to work mainly in the estates there, you can still buy properties. Again in the outskirts, and greatly, you know, you got your 3x1s on sort of 700-800 square meter blocks. Subdividable, yep. and you can pick these up for the sort of mid to high sixes, low sevens, which is still pretty good. Yep. When you think about the fact that you can they're R40, R60 type, 3 units on there. Yep. You've got, so when you talk about, you know, what's the sort of cheapest, you can still pick up great properties in those outskirts. Then you've got other pockets around the Osborne Park Hospital, which is just north of Karrinyup Road there, and you've got these are or what they call sub-precinct development sites. So they're not an R40 or an R60. So these are sites that you can develop up to 3 stories high. Right. Okay, so they're an 800 square meter block will be looking at 850, 900, just under that $1,000 a square meter. There's another pocket by the Civic Gardens, getting up now on the north side of Cedric Street, so Telford Road, which was the old street that used to take the locals into Northbridge, into the city. Mm-hmm. So in that pocket of Telford, you've got again the sub precinct development sites. Yep. So you can buy an 850, 900 square meter block, and you can go up to 3 levels. Okay.
Is anyone developing them at the minute?
They are. There are some developments happening on that Telford stretch, with 1, 2, 3 bedroom units. Yeah. And the beauty of them is they're all walking distance. You walk across the road, across the park, 5-minute walk to the train and bus stations at Stirling there. Walk across the footbridge and you're into the Osborne Park commercial areas. Yes. Beautiful cycleways, pathways.
We haven't really spoke about the proximity to Osborne Park, really, have we? Because on the other side of the freeway, you have got Osborne Park, which is just huge retail, commercial space. What are we getting for the median house price in the suburb of Stirling? So,
as I said before, your median price for 950 is buying you a 4x2. Yeah, 4x2 on a decent, 500-600 square meter block. And if you're lucky, you can buy close to you can buy in the estates, around the lakes that you have there. Yeah. So you're getting good value. You're getting a good bang for your buck. Yeah.
Talking double story.
Yeah.
Yeah. Brand new style house.
Yeah. 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 So it's a good buy.
Yeah. And then at the top end of town in the suburb, what are we looking at there?
Top end of the suburb, just recently, up to about 6 months ago, there was a home that was 17, 18 years old on a 700 plus square meter block, went for 2.3.
Wow.
So when I first got into real estate in Stirling, people said, well, if I'm going to spend $2 million, I'm going to look here and there. No, people are looking at the estates, and there's some beautiful, beautiful homes in just under the 2 mil mark. That's buying you a lot of house.
Yeah. Recently driven through Stirling, and it does feel, even though it's an established suburb, it does feel quite new in certain pockets, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So there's some great homes still being built. It's just it's a great feel. I know I sound biased because I live there, but seriously, having the kids grown up there, and again, as I said, the markets on a Sunday, being able to walk to the local cafes, etc., and have meetings and catch up with the family, and getting to school, getting to the city, 10, 15 minutes. Yeah.
Brilliant. If you had the suburb median to spend now on an investment property, so $950,000, what would you buy and why?
Could I move my mother-in-law in there?
It's actually quite interesting. You said you're multi-generational. So you got the full family.
We're a multi-generational family. So my wife's parents, asked the kids. So ideally, if I could get for the median, you would talk about the median. So for under $1 million, you could buy a really good 4x2 on, say, 550, 600 square meters of land. Spacious, nice. Again, close to the train, close to the buses, and you could. I would like to think you could get on the lakes, but not for that sort of money. But just off the lakes, you're still buying great value. But 4x2, 4x3 on about 500-600 square meters of land.
Granny flat on the back for the mother-in-law.
Granny flat, yeah, absolutely. Big garage,
Put the toys in. If we could bring you the perfect house to sell in Stirling, what would it be and where would it be? Like, where's the biggest demand?
So your highest demand is for, I'd say, 4 or 5 bedroom, 3 bathrooms, triple garage, 550, 600 square meters on the lake in Princeton or in Rosalie estates, both beautiful estates. You've got water aspects in both estates. Again, in Princeton estate, you've got 2 lakes that they can be around, and from there you've got access onto Hutton Street, the triple garage, for the trailer, the boat, the caravan. Really, really good value.
Yeah. And who would be buying a property like that? What's the demographic for that?
Again, your Chinese and Indian, there's huge demand, but also Europeans and Australians. But again, I can only go off the demand and the people and the inquiries coming through. Yeah. Huge Asian and sort of demographic coming into the area.
Yeah. And if we did develop something like that in that suburb, is it something that we need to think about the way the Asians or the Indians live that we wouldn't know about?
Again, mainly multi-generational.
Yep.
Multi-generational, loving the large sort of guest bedroom with ensuite, and possibly a small living space, downstairs.
Yep.
As they get older, not wanting to get up and downstairs. They like their double story. So you say, well, would you like a 5x3? Oh no, we want a double story. They tend to favour the double story. So, but the main thing is that they'd like the guest bedroom or a large enough bedroom for mum and dad and downstairs.
Yeah. And multi-generational, are we all under the same roof? Do we have an ancillary dwelling? Is it's a house sectioned off in a certain way so mother-in-law's got her own space?
They've got their own space. They've if they've got an extra living area. So a lot of people will take a theatre room, and convert it and just leave it as a space for the elders in the family to be able to have their own space. Mm-hmm. But they're not necessarily wanting it partitioned off. Always nicer if you can. I've got a beautiful property in Stirling. It's a 6x4 and it's got 2 kitchens.
Ooh, sounds right? Power alley.
Yeah, it's got 2 kitchens. 6x4, 2 kitchens, swimming pool, 2 laundries, swimming pool. Just brilliant.
Well, what would that sell for?
1.7.
1.7.
Yeah, it's just a fantastic home. Yeah. Had a lot of money spent on it, so if you walked into it, it's like a brand new home. Really it's a brand new home. It's brilliant.
Yeah, see a lot of, like I said, I drove through the suburb not too long ago, and you see a lot of all the houses which look new. Yep. Whether they have been knocked down and rebuilt or whether they've just been refurbished.
And it's interesting, a lot of those 18, 19, 20-year-old homes are just getting the fronts rendered.
Yes, I think that's what it is.
Front render, liquor paint, and it's amazing the difference.
What about development opportunities there? You touched on the 3-story things that are going on there and the 728 square metre site. Yep. Any other development opportunities in Stirling that we need to be aware of?
Not really. There are mainly two pockets of developments, and they're the larger blocks in the outskirts of Stirling, off your Odin, off your Cedric, and off your Jones Street. where you've got your R40, R60, where you can put your double stories. And double stories are still working really well. They don't work well in some suburbs, but your double stories, townhouses and villas still work really well on those sites. Then the other pocket is, the two main pockets are around that Osborne Park Hospital, and the Telford Crescent opposite the Civic Gardens Park. So the Telford is on that Princeton side. The Osborne Park Hospital is obviously behind Civic Gardens, and that's where you've got these sub-development sites where you can go multi-rise.
Right. And on the R40 728 square metres, is there a market for the 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom villa that gets developed on there?
Absolutely. If there was that type of development happening, there would be so many people in Stirling generally who want to downsize, right? Who would still love to live in the area. They don't want to move out of the area. They love the area. They've got the families living nearby. So if they had 3x2s, so they could still walk to the IGA or the Woolies, you'd make a killing.
Yeah, so we could pick one of them sites up for about 650, did you say?
650, 700, yeah, absolutely.
What would they finish 3x2 sell for?
Your 3x2s would be going into your mid-sevens.
Mid-sevens, wow.
Yeah.
There's some profit in that,
yeah, there's
isn't it?
Look, it's interesting how much you can buy a good quality 3x2.
Yeah.
There was some 3x2s selling again up to 12, 18 months ago into the 8 and 900s. Yeah, it's crazy.
But and again, when we look at the people that are going to be moving into them, because we've touched on the fact that the interest rate rises have meant that some people don't want to buy at that top end of town as well.
Yep.
But the people that could potentially be moving into these smaller 3x2 villas are the people that are going to be selling the unencumbered properties.
Exactly. So they'll sell for a mil, 1.1, 1.2. They'll have a little bit of change left over, and they can move into a 3x2 and still have all the benefits of what they've enjoyed for the last 20 years.
Yep.
So it's a win-win type situation. So, but that's mine and a lot of people's frustration because there's nowhere to go to.
It's true, mate. And do you see any light at the end of the tunnel, Patrick, in the way of the rates coming down and development starting back up again? Because construction prices have gone to a point where a lot of projects aren't viable. Yeah.
So that's where's that crystal ball? So look, everyone's talking about that relief.
Yeah.
Happening in the next 12 to 18 months. The challenge is still where's the land? Where is the land? Where's that being released? So we talk about sort of this so-called infill, but it requires that sort of older generation, that demographic. Again, refer to the outskirts of yes, okay, we'll sell, and we're prepared to go another 5 kilometres out there, or there. So that's the challenge. That's the challenge.
Yeah. Do we have any 1 or 2 bedroom apartments in the suburb?
The only 1 or 2 bedrooms that are now is in the development just by the IGA, just further down from your Centric Street.
Yep.
So there's still there's still a half a dozen, but other than that, there's nothing else in the area.
Yeah. What do they sell for, them apartments?
Those don't quote me on this, but I think they're anywhere between $395 to that sort of $595.
Yeah, so $395 for a 1-bed studio apartment.
Correct.
Do we know what they rent for roughly?
Your guess is as good as mine.
Sales
Look,
rent.
and you know what's happening with the rental market. I would say to you, one better would go for $400, $450.
Yeah.
But there are people coming in here and going, well, if I give you an extra $50 a week, so
it's out of control.
It's out of control.
Yeah,
it's
people
out of
have
control.
got FOMO, the fear of missing out. They've already put applications in for 4 or 5 other properties and missed out on them. We've just finished a property just around the corner from the office, 5-bedder, and we rented 2 of the rooms out in that property. One of them went for $400 a week, fully furnished.
One of the rooms.
And then we rented another one of the rooms out to a couple, and we got $500 a week for that one.
So you're getting $900, $950
And then we've got another 3 rooms that rent out for 350.
Yeah. So you know, when you ask me, you know, what people are getting, yeah.
We've got a HMO in Stirling, just on the other side of the lights from where you live.
On the corner of Karrinyup and Cedric.
Yeah, just right next to there.
Yeah.
Subdividable block. Currently it's a 5x3, and we're going to be flattening that and putting 2 new 6-bedders on there. And
okay,
looking forward to getting that one.
Yeah, that'll be great. Yeah, so you know, if there are sites like that coming up, it'll give us hope, because we can make recommendations to people who are wanting to live in the area. And sometimes, just mum and dad now, kids have gone, and sometimes it's a single parent, and they're just holding on because they just don't have anywhere to go to.
Yeah.
So,
and they don't have much cash as well, because it's all tied up in the family home.
Correct.
Isn't it?
Correct.
Patrick, it's been a pleasure catching up with you today, mate. I could.
It's great.
We chatted for about 30 minutes before we even hit record.
No, it's great.
It's been a pleasure catching up, mate. Thank you very much for coming on the podcast.
My pleasure. Take care, Neil.
Join us again next week on the HMO Property Show.
Thanks for listening. Make sure you tune in the same time next week so you stay up to date with all the cash flow positive property updates.